Good evening and welcome to the CCSD21 Regular Board of Education meeting. It is now called to order. Would everyone please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome to everybody who is in virtual land as well as with us this evening in person. First order of business is to establish a quorum. Secretary Riddick, if you would.
Phil,
Aye.
Debbie,
Aye.
I am here. Stacy, Alan, here. Arlen,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Stacy. Yes. We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. For those that are in the audience that wish to make a public comment when we get to that part of the agenda, there are comment cards to my left, your right. Please fill it out and deposit with Ms. Del Real. At the appropriate time, she will forward them on to the chair. We will go on to board communications. We'll start with NSSEO update.
Well, this month was rather quiet. The biggest thing, unfortunately, I was not able to attend, but we did break ground on the Timber Ridge new gymnasium and elevator project. So that's started. Anything that would be, most of what would be involving in where the students are will be done over the summer. So there won't be any disruption to any of the students. And then next month, we do not have a meeting. Traditionally, they do not have meetings in July.
Okay,
So I will not have a report next month.
very good. All right. Next is the update from about EdRed, Bill and or Jessica.
And I'll be just as brief as Debbie. EdRed is on its summer hiatus at the moment. In our past meeting, we did name 4 new executive board members to replace those school board members who chose not to run for re-election. We will be having 2 retreats this summer. The first to discuss our bylaws and the second to discuss legislative initiatives for the upcoming year.
Okay. Jess.
Also, very briefly, the mandates committee will be meeting in July to discuss some feedback received on the mandates reform bill before EdRed meets with the sponsor of the bill.
Bill, am I mistaken or are you the chair now of EdRed?
I am the interim chair at the moment. That's part of our bylaws discussion this summer to work out our structure again.
Well, congratulations on your interim assignment.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Following up, IASB update.
Again, briefly, the North Cook Fall Dinner we spoke about a couple of weeks ago will be held either September 22nd or October 20th, depending on the availability of a venue.
Wow.
The planned speaker is Dr. Courtney Orzel. Did I pronounce that right?
Orzel.
Orzel
I'm
of
sorry.
IASA, who was previously the superintendent of Lamont Bomberic District 113A, and she will be speaking about returning to your why.
About what? Say that.
Returning to your why.
WHY?
Yes,
Got it.
not to the why.
Any questions for Bill on those updates? Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Arlen, North Cook Intermediate Service Center, anything?
Yeah, we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago. Everything is on track. First time in person since the beginning of the pandemic. Everybody was happy with that. And so you have the report, which I sent you on the superintendent's last report. So you have that. One new project just to share with the board for me, and that is Shelter Inc. is an organization that has 3 shelters, one for girls, one for boys who are either have issues at home or wind up on the street or a whole host of other reasons they have nowhere to live. Third one is a transitional facility in Arlington Heights that helps young people age 16 to 19 actually learn how to live independently, get a job, and then move out and they help them with all the process. So there is they have bought a building in Arlington Heights, not terribly far from where I live. And they have gone to the village to get this multifamily dwelling approved for 10 young people. And of course, the NIMBYs are out. but I am working with them to try to support this project to make it happen. I got a call from the mayor of Schaumburg. They have one of the two other facilities, and he just raves about it. He said, Arlen, the time has come for these facilities. We need it in Schaumburg. I'm sure you need it in Arlington Heights. So he offered to do whatever he could to help, but it's marvelous. I went out and met the kids, and just a wonderful, wonderful program. For the alternative would be these young people would be on the street. So it's a marvelous program, and so I'm working on it. That's all I got.
Very good. Thank you. Stacy, anything for tonight?
No,
Stacy, anything for
nothing.
tonight?
Thank you.
Okay. I want to recognize a fellow elected official, Sherry Clump from the Wheeling Park District. There you are, Sherry. Welcome again. We appreciate your attendance always at our monthly meetings. Always good seeing you. Before we move into staff communications, I just have a personal thing at this point. Tonight marks what would have been the last monthly meeting for Rosemary Meyer. Rosemary has dedicated her entire career to this district, close to 30 years, Bob, 30 plus years maybe. She's had a lasting impact on so many of our students and our staff, both currently and those that have been here previously. I just want to, on behalf of the board, for the minutes, offer a huge, huge thank you for the dedication that she has shown to this district and everybody that's been associated with it over the time. So thank you, Rosemary, wherever you are this evening and wherever you're going to be as you enter into retirement. We appreciate your service and dedication. Tonight, we have a full meeting. We've got a lot on the agenda tonight, everything from routine items in our consent agenda to approving new staff. And I see we have perhaps at least one, if not both of the staff members out in the audience. Financial information from our CFO and approval of, well, consideration of an exciting opportunity to purchase some land for future use for the district. And very shortly we'll be listening to a very engaging discussion about our English language learners, and we're all looking forward to that, Beatrice. So with that, why don't we move into staff communications? Dr. Conley?
Well, you just did the introduction. So Beatrice, I'll turn it over.
Nicely.
Sorry about that. I can't see. Oh, it gets disabled. It says the screen share mic. All right, there we go. Good evening, everyone. My mic's on.
Good evening.
Evening.
You're good. So I'm gonna give you a update on some of the changes that we're planning for the coming school year for our language services program, which was previously, right, our bilingual program, and it's part of the restructuring that's been renamed. So as you know, over the year here that I've been here, I've been looking at multiple data points and thinking about the progress of our ELs and talking with our staff. And so based on some of that data, both qualitative and quantitative, we're looking at making some changes to our service models for our students. This slide here is just kind of a visual, right? To remember that to make sure that we have equity improvement for all of our students, there's a lot of stakeholders that have to be a part of that process. So of course, leadership, a safe, supportive environment, family and community engagement, our educator effectiveness, and student access and opportunity. All of those pieces are really important, not just for our ELs, but for all of our students here in District 21. One of the things that we'll be working on being really strategic about, not just for the EL program, but for all of our programs, is looking at a program review cycle. And so this kind of lays out the steps of how we will start to develop those program review cycles, regular program review cycles. My understanding is it's been quite some time since we reviewed our program services for EL. So I definitely think that it's time to take a look at that. Just again, right, real high level overview to make sure that everyone kind of has some common background knowledge. 49% of our students in our district are ELs, and you can see there the breakdown based on languages that are represented. If you have any questions as I go, please just catch my attention and I will be happy to answer.
Okay.
One of the questions that came up after the board received the packet, so I added this slide, was about the increase in the EL percentage and if it was concentrated in any one language. And I just highlighted those two just because, right, there's ups and downs throughout the years. But if you compare 2015 to 2021, you'll see that actually we've had an increase of all of the languages except for Polish. Our Polish speaking population has declined. But all of the other languages have shown some increase. And again, those numbers that you see are numbers of students currently in our district and then historically. So I know one of the board members had a question about that. Yes.
Are these all non-English languages, or is English included in the other languages category?
These are all EL students.
Okay.
So identified EL students, right, it doesn't include our English speaking only children.
Usually.
Okay, so I know that that was a question, right? How was it spread?
Right. I think this has been partially answered, but just so it's clarified for me, we've seen different numbers over the years in different phraseology used. We hear English language learners, English as a second language, English who speaks what language at home, and the percentages are always different. With this and with this change, are we going to see consistent phraseology going through so that we can see consistent numbers going through of what all these different phrases mean, not just so much for us, but for the public as well?
Yeah, definitely understand the question and the concern. Part of it is that the state has changed the terms that they use, right? And so what they're currently using now are EL students, not ELL students anymore. So part of our changing terminology is because ISB also changes terminology.
In the 20 years I've been in this field, it's changed 3 times. It was ELL, then it was ENL, then it went back to ELL, and now it's EL.
And
So-
even before that, it was LEP. from the
LEP,
very
that's right.
beginning, And then they moved away.
Yes.
4 times.
Yeah,
Yes.
right.
It
Yeah.
was.
So
And
That's-
it seems like the calculations for who qualified in those definitions also sometimes changed, which is part of the confusion that goes to the community.
yes, even the assessments over the years have changed. Correct. Mhm. Another question that was asked was, why do we think that we've been seeing an increase in our EL population? So again, I'm just going to highlight these two, right, pieces of data because it fluctuates over the years. But if you look, kind of what we're seeing is, and this year I think was an anomaly with our preschool probably because of COVID, right? But we had an increase of preschool, which we would want that, right? We want to intervene early with our kids. So we would want that population to increase. But then if you look, K through 3 actually has shown a decline in the number of students that we've had, but then we have more students grades 4 through 8. I'm not 100% certain, but that could be an indicator that we're keeping our kids in the program longer and that's why those numbers are increasing. It also could be a combination of qualifying more students and those populations rolling up, right? I'm not sure that we have the ability to tease it out to the level that we would be able to make a comment on certainty on that. But we definitely can see that we have more students 4 through 8 than we had in 2015.
Can you go back one slide just for a second?
Yes.
So when I look at 2015 to 2021, our Spanish speaking population has stayed pretty consistent, but you've got what we're seeing out in the community, and we're seeing certainly in our schools, is other populations have grown, I think, in surprising ways, but you have a lot, Gregor and even, so I think the diversity in the communities has increased as far as, because when I look at this, I'm looking at the Spanish speaking population, which in Wheeling has stayed pretty consistent over the last several years. We used to see really big ebbs and flows when people traveling in and out of the country. We stopped seeing that 6 or 7 years ago, where we didn't see so much back and forth. Our kids used to travel the migrant calendar, really, where they would come in October and leave us in April, and that stopped. But I think it's interesting to see the diversity has really upticked a lot in different kinds of communities coming to join us.
Yeah.
Would that be a fair, I'm looking at it in an anecdotal way at numbers, would that be a fair anecdotal assessment?
Yes, absolutely. And
Thank you.
actually, I will just share with you, even if we look at the languages of our students that, right, their country of origin is India, you wouldn't normally pick them up. I only picked them up because I just, out of curiosity, was trying, because right, when we look at our demographics and having Asia be a large population, I was trying to figure out, right, where was there some commonality? And that's where it is. There's so many languages for that population that you really have to kind of cluster them to see the effects of it.
No, that's great. I appreciate that. That's really helpful.
But
Thank
it's
you.
also an incredible strength of our district, the diversity of language, absolutely amazing. That's the world we live in, and that's something for us to brag about.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any questions about this slide? I think I covered what I wanted to cover on it.
Just a question real quick. These are numbers of students who have opted into the program.
No, this is total identified ELs.
So parents can refuse to be placed into the EL track, right?
They can.
Are those students included in those numbers?
They
who have
are.
Refused? Okay.
Yeah. So this is any child identified as an EL, whether they refused or they did not
Okay, thank you.
refuse. Mhm. This was a piece of data that I thought was really relevant and for us to pay attention to, right? Is that it appears that we are over-identifying our EL students with IEPs. And there's, right, I can give you a number of reasons why I think that that's happening. It's difficult, again, to pinpoint because we don't have consistent longitudinal data to be able to pinpoint it. But for certain, we would expect it, right? Proportionally, you would expect it to be what the student population is, which is 49%. And so that appears to be an overrepresentation.
Wow.
Yeah, and our Spanish speakers are overrepresented. If you look at the other slide, we're at, right, 72%. So they're slightly overrepresented, but that's not the crux of the overrepresentation. There's other populations also overrepresented there. So that's something, right, that we need to look at from an EL standpoint, but also in collaboration with student services. And again, I think I mentioned when we approved Anya Figueroa, one of the things that really stood out to our administrative team was that she has the background in both of those areas. And so we feel pretty confident that she's going to be able to help us really hone in and get to the root of those issues. I changed this slide a little bit from what was put in the board packet based on questions that came. They were really good questions, right? And sometimes when you live and breathe this information, you forget that you need to take a step backward. So I appreciated the questions. And so I added the definition. One of the questions that came up from multiple board members was, what does the exit rate mean? Right? And so that's the percentage of students who qualify to exit each year. So based on the access results, right? That's how it's determined which students are eligible to exit. So it's based on their proficiency over the course of the year and how they perform on that assessment. So our report card from 1920 has our exit rate at 9.2 and the state's rate at 7.9. I do feel that based on our student demographics, we should have an exit rate higher than 9.2. And so that will, again, be another metric that we're going to look and follow very closely to work on having that number increase. The chart that's beneath it are our current students, right? So these are how many kids that are current over the last 3 years exited that are still with us. And I put that number just so you could kind of see, right? So while the exits for those years, the number of students was higher, these are the ones that are still with us. Yes.
We talked about, Stuart, let me get closer. You were asked a question about families that refuse the service. Is there a flip side issue with families that are resisting exiting the programs?
Yes, sir. Mhm. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I believe in one of my responses to some of the questions was about making sure that we're clear about what the purpose of our programs are, right? So we have a variety of program models, which is perfectly acceptable. We have a diverse community, and so it makes sense that we would not have a one type of model for all of our students. But I think it's really important that we are clear about the purpose of the program. So for example, a large part of our students are in a TBE program, right? A transitional bilingual education program. That program by design is to transition from the native language to the English language. We have parents who put their kids in that program because they want them to learn the native language. That's not the purpose of that program. Right. And so as a district, as a board, as with, along with the superintendent, we need to be very clear about what types of programs we want to offer and what is the purpose of those programs so that we're properly communicating it to our families.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Sure.
Beatrice, at some point, perhaps not this evening, at some point, based on your experience in this area, I think the board would appreciate knowing what your personal expectations are as a professional for that exit rate. And again, I'm not asking you that tonight. I'm just saying at some future date, we would like to see what your goal, what the district's goal is going to be.
Yeah, I will tell you from my experience, it's been between 13 and 16% when I have overseen these programs.
Is there a time frame? We were once talked to about a 3-year time frame of students moving out of the program. Obviously, that's not the case. Is there a time frame expectation that we should have?
I really think it depends on student need. I think the 3-year marker comes from we're required by law to have students in a certain type of programming for a minimum of 3 years. Best practice is that you keep meeting those students' needs, but it's that whole challenge of balancing how much are we, increasing their English acquisition as well as supporting that native language. So there's not a one size fits all, but I definitely think that in my experience and my professional experience leading 2 large programs, usually by 4th grade, 3rd, 4th grade, if it's a transitional bilingual education program, we would be expecting those students to exit from the program.
Except when they come to us, not at kindergarten,
Well, yeah,
pre-kindergarten, when they come to us at 2nd, 4th, 5th grade,
That changes
then
the
what's that
trajectory.
expectation? Stacy, you had a question?
So there are a handful of us that are around that did the bilingual restructuring committee many years ago, where Dr. Michael put me on that committee as a pushy, loud young mother who, and it was like taking a college course, like really, like I asked for money or college credit afterwards. But one of the things that we talked a lot about was this cultural resistance to having kids move out of a bilingual classroom, for lack of a better term, into mainstream education for fear of losing that home language. And we talked a lot about it then, and it sounds like some of those issues are similar today as they were, and I'm going to go with 16, 17, 18 years ago. I can only base it based on how old my youngest kid is, because she came with me to those classes in a stroller, and she was maybe a year or 2. So, and she's 20 now. So But it seems like a lot of the issues that we're talking about this with now are issues that we faced years ago in the same conversations when we restructured that program. I think the difference is now is we have more languages and more cultures to take into consideration. So as we move through this, you know, that's something that we discovered as we were talking. We had bilingual families join us and there was lots of conversation, but there was still this barrier in getting people to understand, you know, that discomfort is really, you know, what needs to happen. But it was a barrier then, and it sounds like it's a barrier today. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yes, it would be. And I used to always refer it as the bilingual bubble. It's the safe little bubble
Yeah.
that our kids and our parents and even some of our teachers, right? They want to protect the kids. And so that's what I used to call it, the bilingual bubble. And that's a fair assessment. It still exists.
So I'm just hoping as we go through this process, we remember, you know, that, you know, many of these families that came here and are part of our school communities came over as villages. And so they really do still operate. Many of our neighborhoods still really do operate like little villages. And so I think some of that is systemic. So as we talk about it, I think that bubble is still there.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So then I wanted to give you some information on refusals, and this kind of comes, you know, to that as well. Just like we have parents who want to try and retain the native language, we also have parents who feel that they need to push their children with English to make sure that they get that English, right? And so that's part of, I think, why we see refusal of services. I think there's a lot of reasons why, but I also think that it's a very large amount of refusal of services. So this is nearly 20%.
Yeah.
Again, in my professional experience, it's usually around 10% in a district. So that really causes a pause and to say, how much of it is because of the programming that we're offering? How much of it is that we maybe are overqualifying students and their parents say, oh, my child doesn't need those services? It probably is worth our while to survey the parents that have refused services just to gauge that, because those are just some things, right, based on my professional experience and would be some guesses, but it's a big enough population that we probably need to dig deeper. I wanted to share, while this data is a couple of years old, I did want to share it because I think that sometimes, especially coming out of COVID, right, we have this tendency to want to say, well, it was a COVID year, right? And I'm going to show you some map data that I'm sure has been impacted by COVID. But I also wanted to share, right before COVID, that there was some, you know, concern still with the achievement of our English learners. And so, right, if you look here, this is straight from the school report card. And it, you know, you can see that our English learners are right around the same achievement as our IEP students. For reading and for math, they're performing right a little bit better than our IEP students, but still probably not at the level that we would want them to. And remember, IAR starts at 3rd grade, right? And so if a typical trajectory, right, if we had a kindergartner and they were with us, we would anticipate or expect that their achievement by 3rd grade, starting in 3rd grade, would be higher. And then science. Because it's not a presentation just on data, right? But I did want to give some data, some of our latest data with our spring data. And again, this slide has been changed a little bit from the original based on board member question about refusals. How are the refusals are performing? So those columns have been added. So the first column is our non-EL students. So students who haven't been identified as EL at all. And then the next column, reading EL, is English reading achievement for our ELs. The column next to that is the refusals, right? How those students are performing. So very commensurate, right? There's not too much of a statistically significant difference. And then when we look at the reading in Spanish, so that how our ELs are performing, that are Spanish speakers, how they're performing, again, they're pretty similar. Those 3 bars are pretty similar. And then if we move on to math, it follows the same pattern, right? The first column is our non-EL students and their performance. Next column is math and English of our EL students. the math refusal in English, and then Spanish. What we do see though, right, is that our ELs are performing better in math than they are in literacy, which is not a huge surprise. It's right. That's kind of to be expected. But that is something that, right, that is noted there as far as something that is statistically significant as of a difference. That's our elementary data. When we look at the middle school data, same pattern, right, of the bars. But again, you'll see when we're looking at those EL bars, there's not huge differences, right? In terms of the percentages of students that are, meeting or exceeding. We need those numbers to grow, most definitely. And that these types of data, and this is kind of what we've been seeing this year, again, we know that it's COVID and we know that there's other things impacting it. However, it's still data that we have that we know points to some other issues, particularly when we look at how our EL students are performing in English and in Spanish and not seeing anything, too much of a difference between those when we would expect to. Yes, sir.
First of all, sir is my father. He's fine. You could just call me Bill. For the colorblind of us, I'm trying to see something here.
My apologies.
No. I've been colorblind for 62 years. It appears, because we're talking about the difference between how the ELs and the EL refusals were doing. It seems when you said maybe the parents know that their kids don't need it, that they're doing better. Am I looking at this correctly to say that this data doesn't seem to show that? I mean, it seems to me that the refusals, and again, it might be my color blindness, but the refusals and the people in EL are doing fairly similarly.
They are doing fairly similarly. What I said was, and if I said it incorrectly, I apologize, was that when we're qualifying students, there are parents that may say, my child does not need native language support or does not need, right, special services. That doesn't mean that they don't, but we also have other factors as well, right? Where we bus kids to different, schools that are not their home schools and things like that. So there's a lot of layers or possibilities of why parents are refusing services for their students, but you're reading it correctly. The performance is very similar. Yes, sir.
And
Bill.
I just want to
Thank you.
I just want to say that you would expect that if we had the right program model, that those who are refusing services would be faring less well than those who are in those services. Those services should be a value added and moving them across. So the fact that they are not, I think, is a further indication that there is a grave need within the program to overhaul.
And part of that is just the nature of, right, the change. We have more access to technology, right? Our ELs of today just don't look like they did a couple of years ago even. So in thinking about, right, what are some of the things that we want to set some goals of, and I did put a note, and I know there was, a comment about that. I didn't want to set the targets without us having our new director in place and having more discussion and diving a little bit deeper into the data. But what we do know is that we want to increase our students' English instructional minutes. And so one of the big things that we're going to do is changing language of instruction of math to 3rd and or 4th grade, depending on the needs of students. Right now, that is set at 5th grade. We're going to bring it down a little bit earlier for our students in our TBE programming. And then we're going to also look at English instructional minutes throughout other courses or other core curricular areas as well. But that's one of the biggest shifts that will happen across the district. And that's more in alignment with what a lot of districts do. We're going to look at small group and individual instructional supports. And so all of that has been things that I'm sure you've heard about. We've been talking about in terms of our recovery plan and things of that nature with the additional positions that we're having. Obviously, we want to increase the percentage of students who are having academic growth and achievement for our ELs, as well as their proficiency in English, which again, remember that exit rate, that's an indicator of their achievement in English, and we really need for that to increase. this goes to that conversation about the bilingual bubble and that safety net, right? Wanting to increase the opportunities for our EL students to integrate with their monolingual peers. That helps reduce that fear, right? So integrating them through specials, PE, things like that, that will help with that transition. And then on the opposite side, because we are so rich and have so many different languages, rich in culture and languages, we really want to look at what are some other opportunities that we can have outside of the core area, right? So outside of the 4 core reading, math, social studies, and science, but where are some other opportunities that we can give students exposure either to their own native language or to other languages?
Bill?
Go ahead.
So one of the measures that I would love to see, and if we were a unit district, we could do that easily, is one, a benchmark as they leave us. Where are our students at versus where we would expect them to be? And then secondly, is there any way after year 1 of high school, we can see how they're doing? Would 214 cooperate with us with that kind of data? If we can do that, then we really can measure what we're doing.
Yeah, they would be more than happy. And I think that Beatrice and I had a lunch meeting with Dr. Schuler and Dr. Lopez, and we're having just that conversation. So we will have access to that information. All we need to do is ask and use it.
Great.
And we will
Terrific.
do
Great.
just that.
That's a big change.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to that, that we did talk to them about some of the programmatic changes that we were looking to make. And they were ecstatic to hear about some of the changes because they are seeing some things with the students that they, they're concerned about and they want us to look at.
Well, and particularly Dr. Lopez, who was principal at Wheeling High School. He knows our kids. He is. And so, yes.
Excellent. That's great.
So just like we're looking to increase some things, we're also looking to decrease some things, right? So we want to decrease the number of students who are attending schools that are not their home schools for EL services, right? So that's part of the plan with the model is meeting their needs, but meeting their needs at their home schools instead of having to bus them. Reducing the blends of multi-grade classes. And I know Bob gave some statistics earlier in the year as far as, we had blends, I think FY21, we had 24 blends and our projected for this following year is three projected blended classrooms. And part of that is because of the model changes and the way that we're going to reposition students and service students. We want to decrease the opportunity gap between our non-EL and EL students. And part of how you do that is to make sure that students are acquiring their English proficiency a little bit quicker, because then that opens up more opportunities for courses for them, particularly right at the middle school and high school levels. We want to decrease our long-term ELs, right? So we've already kind of touched on that we're a little bit concerned about how long students are staying in the program. And then we also want to decrease, again, something I already touched on, the percentage of EL students who are being identified as needing special services. So this is, again, just really quickly a visual of how all of our plans are connected, right? So we have our strategic plan and that our equity plan is linked to that and our school improvement plans. They're all linked together and those plans will all have EL specific pieces embedded into them. One thing I think that's really important to emphasize is that to service our EL students, it's not just those EL teachers, right? It's a whole system that has to support the initiative and those students. And so that's what I was trying to depict here with this visual. We're doing a lot of work with Kim and the student services team on the MTSS process to make sure that we have stronger core curriculum and the metrics to monitor how our students are doing and intervening earlier with them. And I would just particularly like to thank Colleen Connolly, who has helped tremendously with this process. She was leading it before and is helping with transitioning it now to the equity and learning team. She's been awesome. And then just some additional student support. So again, it's a system. in order to make these changes and to have these improvements for our students. It's going to be a lot of different pieces that have to work in alignment towards that betterment for our ELs. In terms of the models, I kind of talked a little bit already about TBE, so I won't talk much more about that. We do have a dual language strand at 2 of our buildings, right? At Frost and at Whitman, that's an Spanish English strand. One of the new pieces is the sheltered English instruction with native language support. So, right, though there will be sections in our buildings that are taught by ESL teachers, and instead of pulling kids out and having multi-level classes, they will be 1 grade level, right, with teachers who know strategies specific for ELs. And then we will continue with ESL instruction for students that are in those smaller pockets. And some of that will be co-taught and some of it will be through resource.
Are we planning to expand the dual language program, or is that going to pretty much stay static?
We're going to refine the current strands at the 2 buildings. We're exploring the possibility of having field be a one-way dual language program to meet the needs of students that are currently right in the EL programming. And then also have talked a little bit with Christy and Matthew about possibly a one-way Russian dual strand, since that population is growing. Again, those will be things that we explore this coming year and to determine what it is. But again, it's all about what's the program, defining the program, and making sure that everyone understands what the goal of the program is, so that everybody knows what they're getting into with their students, right?
Great.
When you say one way, what does that mean?
One way means that you would not have, you would just have native speakers, and then it's still considered a dual program, but you don't have monolingual English speakers in addition to that.
Thank you.
Maybe later down the road we would do that, but not initially.
Is that it? Oh, go ahead.
So this is just, I'm not going to read the slide to you, but you just so you can kind of see the different models that will be available for the students at the different grades. You'll see sheltered doesn't come in until 3rd grade because that's typically, again, right, we talked about that, those 3 years of students, and then we expect them to be more ready for more English. And then also at 7th and 8th, you know, the Spanish elective option is there as well. So just really quickly, additional items under review. So I've already talked about it, right? How are we identifying students? Are we identifying them appropriately? And then we need to revisit and adjust the tools that we're using to measure and monitor our EL students to make sure that it's giving us timely data on how they're performing. And then increasing professional development opportunities for our administrators and teachers to make sure that they're using evidence-based practices to make sure that our students continue to grow with their achievement and their English acquisition. I think we've already kind of touched on this. I've done some of these meetings. Some of them were with Anya as well, right? So talked a lot with the dual language principals, the buildings that those are housed in. And then as well as with Kilmer and Poe regarding the Russian population particularly, and trying to, how do we support those students? Anya and I actually went and met with the staff at Twain, with Alyssa, with the principal there, to just talk about what some of the changes that we were looking at and to hear their voices and to hear what else they wanted us to consider. I think that the changes had been very well received at that building, and they're excited and have offered to be our guinea pig for anything that we want to really push a little harder. And then we did a similar thing on May 20th at Field. And then Dr. Conley already spoke about the meeting with 214. And then this summer, I'm going to have Anya start meeting with parents, right, to make sure that they understand the different programs that we have, because all of that will be a communication piece. And then the last thing that I have here is the cohort that I know, I think in a couple other meetings, Dr. Conley has talked about us wanting to start a cohort, and we've had actually a lot of interest in that. And have some staff that are already committed to start this summer. This is so important as far as giving us more flexibility on how we can offer services to our students and not have them so hubbed, right? It will open up how we can service them absolutely throughout our district. So I'm really glad to see that there's so much interest there from our staff. That's all I have for you this evening.
I do.
Stacy?
So one of the things that we talked a lot about over the last while is how the pandemic has affected our families. And I think that when I checked in with Dr. Conley about how families were faring and how students were faring, when we talked about some of our bilingual groups or LE group, whatever you call it, we didn't have a lot of communication, and so like many of our Spanish speaking families and other families, sort of no news was good news. It was hard, we didn't have a lot of communication as far as how things were going, education wise. So we have to sort of hit the reboot button. Families are going to come in next year, I think, overwhelmed. I think we have a lot of kids who have been disconnected from education in general for kind of a while. I'll be really interested to see how that comes back in the fall. But what I would sort of like to see, and we have our engagement and stakeholders, our strategic partnerships committee, hopefully coming back online. But I would really like to see a way to have the information flow both ways, where we're not just telling parents how things are going to go, but we really use it as an opportunity to get some feedback on. I think there's going to be a lot of changes next year. I think people are used to what they're used to. I think some people have been disconnected from the education system for the last 15 or 16 months. And so finding a way to have, I think it's great when you sit people down and tell them what it is, but I think it's even greater when you have the communication flow both ways. And so I hope that we're able to structure this in a way where we are doing as much listening as we are talking. And I think that's going to be overall, and you and I have had a couple of conversations about this. But I don't know that radio silence for a couple of our populations, I don't know that that's necessarily great in getting people back engaged in education. And these are lightning bolt changes, some of them. I mean, some of them are some of the same issues and things that we tackled 20 years ago when we revamped this program 20 years ago from what it was when I first came into the district. So I'd like us to really use this as an opportunity. We had family learning for that for a long time. Hopefully that sort of
It's coming back.
makes a comeback in a way where it really gave us an unusual opportunity to speak to families in a way that we were not able to speak to them before.
Absolutely.
These are amazing changes, but to a community that is not necessarily receptive to change and becomes overwhelmed very easily, I'd like to see us use a variety of strategies to get people excited about not only these changes, but get excited about coming back to school and about education, as opposed to being afraid that we're going to pop their safety net bubble.
Right. Well, just to remind a couple of things that we've embedded in the learning recovery plan that get to that.
Yeah.
We're bringing in family liaisons. Those family liaisons, and as a matter of fact, Kim and Beatrice have been interviewing and have a number of quality candidates that we are considering for those positions. We are bringing on staff translators in to start to remove some of the language barriers that exist as we're trying to engage in conversations. Anya and Beatrice are really going to be working in tandem to increase the vibrancy of our BPAC, our Bilingual Parent Advisory Council. We have the Superintendent's Equity Advisory Council, which of course has a number of non-primary English speaking parents who have really been wonderful in their contributions. So I couldn't agree with you more. And it's hard to get everything into a presentation, but there are multiple layers and arms of things that I just want to make sure that whenever we have an opportunity to remind each other of what we're actually doing right now, that get at everything that you've just brought up.
I know, and I
know.
know what they are, but I think it's important. I think there's a lot of unspoken anxiety out there, and especially when you start to talk about big changes for communities, that it's easy to roll into more anxiety. I think I know, and but I think it's great to get that information out. I think you're striking at some great, we've waited a long time to get on the same page with 214. I'm sure Laz is thrilled. And I'm hoping as we roll out these changes, we use this as an opportunity to swoop back in and make these communities partners in this process.
That's the commitment we're making to you this evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Childress, thank you very much. It's, when we first looked at these at your slide deck, I think the best word and the word I used with Dr. Conley or to Dr. Conley was that it's very sobering. But you can't begin your travels without knowing where you're starting from. And so this was a very important first step for us as an organization to see where we are and to plan for that long trip. And under your guidance, along with Dr. Conley and others, I'm sure it'll be a successful journey. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for submitting the questions ahead of time. That was very
Thank-
helpful.
Thank you. It's very impressive presentation. Thank you.
Dr. Conley, anything else under staff communications?
No.
Okay.
All right.
With that, we move into the public comment portion of our agenda. The board will now allow any individual to share a public comment for up to 3 minutes. Such comments should not include discussion of any personnel matters, which should be brought directly to the attention of the appropriate school official. During public comment, the board administration will listen intently to any comments, but we may not respond to specific questions or comments. Letitia, do we have any comment cards?
No, we do not.
Mike, anybody in virtual land?
No, we don't.
Okay, very good. With that, we will then move on quickly to the consent agenda. There's a couple items, if I can frame real quickly as before we go to vote. We have a couple items here, financial questions. As usual, I've gone over those. I had maybe 4 or 5 questions, Michael, that between you and Melissa that I asked questions, they were obviously satisfactorily responded to. There's only one routine freedom of information request. We do have a couple of staffing actions it's part of the consent agenda, but I'll wait until afterwards to have those folks introduced. There were no conference and travel expense approvals for tonight's meeting. And we are taking action on a 2-day unpaid suspension for staff member Jake Rivera. So with that, does anybody on the board have anything that they need pulled from the consent? If not, may I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move to accept the consent agenda. I just also wanted to comment that organic foods, it seems to me, has done an extraordinary job working with us during this pandemic. And I do know that in terms of the meals we've given out during the period when there was no school at all, it was extraordinary that what we got done with their help. And I just wanted to point that out to everybody and thank them for their hard work.
Thank you. I actually did want to make comment that this is a 1-year renewal on their existing contract, and Organic Life has been an excellent partner. I believe that everyone within the organization obviously agrees to, else we wouldn't be extending their contract. So,
Yeah. Second,
Jess.
Bill,
aye.
I vote aye. Stacy,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Phil,
All right.
Harlan,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
motion carries.
Dr. Conley, did you want to?
Yes, so the board has just taken action to approve the employment of our final 2 new elementary assistant principals. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim Preichel, who will introduce the new assistant principal for Frost School.
Good evening, board. Dr. Connolly. It's not lost on me the irony that just a little over a year ago, I met with you all online at the first board meeting for my own approval. So it's nice to finally meet you all in person and see your faces. But it's with immense excitement that I bring Ms. Emily Gary tonight for approval as the Frost Assistant Principal. Ms. Gary distinguished herself during the interview process as being incredibly student-centered, has a vast knowledge of services for students in the dual language program, as well as our ELs, and has an immense dedication to District 21, having done her PDS internship here, and then serving at Whitman School for the past 6 years. So we're very excited to have her stay in the district and come over to Frost and bring all the knowledge that she has gained in those 6 years in our district and take over as the assistant principal.
Congratulations, Emily.
Welcome.
And to introduce our new assistant principal for Twain, we're going to be doing a hybrid of in-person and remote learning. Remember those. And Alyssa Schlensky, Dr. Schlensky was not able to physically join us this evening, but she is, I believe, on the line. Oh, yeah, there she is. So Alyssa,
So Mr. Preichel and I are role reversals because in February, I was approved at the last in-person board meeting, and tonight I'm joining you virtually. So we're just having a little switching of places tonight. But I am so excited because I would love to introduce Monica Loveshe, who will be joining the Twain team. She comes to us from Mannheim District 83 with experience as a teacher in both bilingual as well as English instructed primary classrooms. She has an enormous passion for working with families in the community, which I know will be a great asset to Twain. She's jumped right in to support Twain and even has her own hard hat already ready to go to prove it with all of the construction going on at Twain. And so we are so excited for Monica to join the team and to be part of the District 21 and Twain family.
Welcome.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you, Alyssa.
Thank you.
Oh. All right, that's all for consent. We now move into the next section. We're going into interfund transfers. And now, the man of the hour.
This is the public hearing on the Ed Fund, one, correct?
yeah, so we'll need to recess the regular meeting and go into.
Be it
we have to do our
resolved, the
little
Board of
thing.
Education approves to recess the June 24th, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting until after the public hearing concerning the interfund transfer from the Education Fund, to the Operation and Maintenance Fund in the amount of $2 million.
A second,
Second,
Jessica.
I vote aye. Stacy,
yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
motion carries.
Michael.
All right, so tonight we'll make a series of transfers. This is the public hearing on the Education Fund to O&M transfer. By law, it's required to be done because it's an operating fund to an operating fund transfer under the school code. So the other two do not require a public hearing, but this one does. We are transferring $2 million from the Ed Fund to the O&M Fund to be part of the grand transfer into the Capital Projects Fund. The district has done a nice job of having its spending reasonable during the period of the pandemic. We are once again targeted for a surplus, and this will help us tackle the capital plan that will come to you next month, which is about $100 million over 10 years. So we are getting a head start on getting money into the Capital Projects Fund so that we can tackle that. Even with the transfer, the amended budget already reflects the dollars. We are still slated to have just a budgetary surplus of $3 million in the Ed Fund. So this transfer will not cause any undue stress or take from any programs that we have currently in mind. I ask that you approve it.
Yeah, well, we talked about it earlier and it's the right move. I'm in favor.
Letitia, are there any public comment cards regarding the interfund transfer?
We have not received any public comment cards.
Mr. Frantini, are there any individuals in virtual land?
There are none.
Thank you. Okay. If there's not any board questions, may I have a motion to adjourn the public hearing and reconvene the regular meeting?
Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves to adjourn the public hearing regarding the CCSD21 FY 2020 to 2021 amended budget and reconvene its regular June 24, 2021 Board of Education meeting.
Second,
Okay. Yes.
Stacy,
yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote yes, motion carries.
Okay. Next, I believe it's item D, interfund transfer from the Ed Fund to O&M. And
Right, so this is just your action item.
Mhm.
So yeah, so this is just taking formal action, so.
Be it resolved, the Board of Education approved the resolution for interfund transfer from the Education Fund to the Operation and Maintenance Fund in the amount of $2 million.
Second.
And just as a comment, Phil, you and I and Ireland, and I think Stacy have been doing so long, these transfers that had to go into the education fund just to prop it up. It is nice to be able to have seen the hard work that we put in and the administration have put in to put us in a position to be able to do this.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yep, sure is.
Debbie,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
Harlan,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
I vote aye. Stacy,
Yes.
motion carries.
Item 7, consideration of the 2020-2021 amended budget. Again, this is a public hearing. Please have.
Be it resolved, the Board of Education approved to recess the June 24, 2021 regular Board of Education meeting until after the public hearing concerning the CCSD21 FY 2020 to 2021 amended budget.
Second.
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
Harlan,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Phil,
Aye.
I vote aye. Stacy,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
motion carries.
Michael.
So tonight's the approval of the amended budget. It has not changed since we put it on display 30 days ago. The highlights, if we were to look at them, have been distributed at your desks as well as on the screen. The key here is that we have taken in more revenue than we had budgeted for. We knew that there was a good possibility that we would take in our full property tax base, but there were very many unknowns. And dealing with the pandemic, the reassessment that the assessor put out based upon reducing dollars, property tax, equalized assessed value based upon the pandemic. So we did go ahead and budget conservatively revenue wise. We have also collected all of our EBF dollars. We have collected all of our categoricals. And as we file our expenditure reports, we are getting all of our grant dollars as well. So on the revenue side, we have done very well. We have added expenditures in rather than take expenditures out, because when this was done 30 days ago, there was no guarantee that there wasn't an emergency or other expenditures that would be required. We did add the transfers into the amended budget. As you can see by the slides, overall, the revenue side, we were up over what we had estimated in each area, except for working cash, which is an interest calculation. We took in less interest than we thought we would. Obviously, that's because interest rates were not as high as they were last year. On the expenditure side, we do have some areas where we spent more, but none that we were out of the realm of where we thought we would be given years past. Transportation is up this year because we did not foresee as much transportation, given the fact that we did not know when we'd come back in. So overall, 7.38% increase in our operating funds in revenue and a 4.3% increase in expenditures. And again, that takes into account all of the transfers that were not originally in the budget, so that now we can go and move forward on the capital plan. As far as totals go, you can see that on the second page, that total surplus, and again, this is a budget surplus. So a budget is a plan, it's not the actual numbers. So our budget surplus is less than what we see our actual surplus to be, because again, it's a plan, and this did not take into account, we did not reduce expenditures that were planned in case something happened in the end of May and through the month of June. So while 1.563 would be an admirable surplus, we are on track to be at a higher surplus overall that would include the $5 million down payment on the building. We believe that all told after that, we will still have a $3 million surplus for the year. That includes forwarding the ViewSonics, some of the Chromebook purchases, doing the transportation, the buses that you did tonight for the activities, and getting kids to educational programs on our own, and a whole host of other expenditures that we were able to go ahead and forward because of the financial responsibility that the district and the board has displayed for the past number of years. So I would ask that you approve the amended budget.
Okay. Do we have any public comment cards?
We do not have any public comment cards or written public comments.
Nothing virtual.
Nothing virtual. Board members, are we ready to adjourn our public hearing and go back into regular meeting.
Mhm.
May I have a motion, please?
Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves to adjourn the public hearing regarding the CCSD21 FY 2020-2021 amended budget and reconvene its regular June 24, 2021 Board of Education meeting.
Thank you, Bill. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Stacy. Jess?
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote aye. Stacy?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Bill?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And now, are there any questions for Michael before we take action? I must say, it's nice to see us seeing a plus as opposed to a negative at this time of year. Appreciate that. I know it's because of your fine stewardship underneath the superintendent's fine stewardship. Right?
And the board's direction.
Spoken like a good superintendent. All right, may I have a motion to accept approve the amended budget, please? Somebody?
I know what that means.
Yes, you do.
Be it resolved, the Board of Education approves the attached resolution to adopt the 2020-21 amended budget.
Second.
Thank you. Jess?
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote aye. Stacy,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
motion carries.
And members, just a reminder that before you leave tonight, everyone has to sign that document.
I have up here.
I think you're the only
I think
two.
it's just the two of you that need to sign it.
Okay.
2, 4, yeah, just the two of you need to sign it. Okay, we move into area 8 under new business. We have a few items here, 4 or 5 items. The first item is the most important for the organization, and that is the extension of Dr. Conley's contract to a full 5-year. This was not a difficult decision for this Board of Education. The amount of work and initiatives that have happened in the first 3 years have been nothing short of incredible. And I think that's all that really needs to be said. So may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Jessica?
Bill,
I just want to know how I have to read it out and he just has to say so moved. Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
Arlen,
With great pleasure. Yes.
Stacy,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate it and look forward to continuing to work with all of you. And Bill, since you brought it up, there are very few times that you can't just say so moved. So you guys don't have to read all the resolutions that you do, but that's entirely up to you.
Well, Letitia puts it all out there for us, so
Understood.
we feel like we
But-
have to,
But so moved is perfectly fine.
You betcha.
and it helps shorten the meetings as well.
Indeed.
Congratulations, and we look forward to the next 5 years.
Congratulations.
Item B, transportation plan. Approval of bus purchases.
Any questions?
Yeah, we've had this discussion previously. Does anybody have any questions for either Mike or Michael?
No.
Seeing none?
So moved.
And thank you, Debbie. Thank you. May I have a second, please?
I seconded.
Oh, okay. Debbie and Stacy. All right.
You knew it would
Jess.
be one of us that would take the shortest route there,
Uh-huh.
so,
I'll kick it off. I vote yes. Stacy,
yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill.
Be it resolved. Aye.
We're voting now, Bill.
Oh,
Motion carries.
that's right.
Okay. Item C is an exciting motion, second only to the first item under new business, the extension of the superintendent's contract. And that is the recommendation that we move forward with the purchase of the adjoining property next door. Does anybody have any questions for either Mike or Michael before the motion goes? Seeing none, be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the contract for purchase of property in an amount not to exceed 2.4 million for the purpose of constructing the district Community Service Administrative Center pending final legal review and negotiation per the resolution approving real estate purchase and contract attached to it as Exhibit A.
I think, Phil, before I vote, it's important to note that the board has had extensive conversations about this and that have discussed it at great length with Michael and explored a lot of the issues that are associated with it. So it's not just that we're voting now. We've talked about this at enormous length over the last period of time.
Actually, ever since November, when we first brought it to this table.
Right.
And you're absolutely
Second.
right. And we've had quite a bit of conversation.
Bill seconded.
Okay. Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Jessica, would you like to call the roll so we can get on with this meeting? Is anybody listening to us really in virtual land?
Hope not.
No, you're here, Kelly. Go ahead.
May I go ahead?
Please.
Stacy,
Me, yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
and I vote yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item D, resolution abating $6 million from the working cash fund and transferring monies to O&M, Operations and Maintenance Fund of our district.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill.
Second.
Any questions for Michael?
No.
Seeing none? Jessica?
Debbie,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye. I'm sorry.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Last item under new business, transfer funds from operation and maintenance to the capital projects fund in the amount of $9.5 million. Questions for Michael? Seeing none, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Second.
Thank you. Jess? Jessica?
Bill,
Aye.
Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy Allen,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. Going into area 9, item 9, TEFRA public hearing. May I please get a motion to recess the regular meeting and convene a public hearing concerning the proposal to issue not to exceed $5 million in general obligation debt certificates, parentheses, limited tax, series 2021.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Jessica?
Sorry, spelled Stacy's name wrong. Arlen,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
motion carries.
Michael? Quick explanation?
Yes. So the TEFRA hearing is a requirement based upon the fact that part of the debt certificates to be issued for the building are 501c3 bonds. So just to take a step back, none of the debt certificates that we are issuing will be affecting property taxes or local funds. These are all basically backed by our state or federal resources. So these are things that are in fund balance now. And then instead of paying up front, we pay them over a period of time based upon pledging current resources that are not property taxes. So property taxes will not go up based upon these debt certificates. The 501c3 bonds guarantee that a portion of the building that's inhabited by the not-for-profit entities can have a reduced rate because of the fact that they're not-for-profit entities using a public building. So that is the purpose of this hearing and why it only speaks to a maximum of $5 million. The other $5 to $6 million would be general obligation bonds that are government-backed, but have a different rate because they're not enhancing the use by a 501c3. So that's the purpose of this. There is no petition period or BINA hearing required under the TEFRA issuance. So this is the only time that we need to go ahead and speak about this publicly. The next step would be to go ahead and do a parameters resolution at the July meeting, which is good for 6 months. So that way we look at interest rates, we look at when the market is most advantageous, and we go ahead and issue the bonds at that point. So this is merely for those 501c3 bonds, and I would ask that we go ahead, have any public comment, and then this would allow us to move to that next phase.
Thank you, Michael. Letitia, are there any public comments? Go.
There are no public comment cards and no written public comments submitted.
Mike?
No, nothing in virtual.
Okay, thank you. May I please get a motion, a second to adjourn the public hearing concerning the death certificates and reconvene the regular meeting?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
This is
Jessica?
scary.
Stacy,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy,
Yes.
Debbie,
Yes.
Bill,
Aye,
Arlen,
Aye.
motion carries.
thank you. Now we move into announcements, a couple quick announcements. The September 2021 regular board meeting date is being rescheduled to Thursday, September 23rd, 2021. And our next regular meeting date, July, will be July 22nd, 2021.
I might be out of town for that meeting, actually.
The July one or September?
The September one. I've got a trade show in Philadelphia.
If you're out of town for work purposes, you can participate remotely. So that's an option for you. And
Okay.
that is the reason we're moving the meeting is because that is the meeting that will be approving next year's budget and timing of posting the 30-day posting from the August to the September meeting. So, but again, if you're out of
It will
for
be
business
business, yeah.
purposes, you are absolutely able to participate remotely.
Okay, as this is the final meeting of the current fiscal year, I want to thank our public, Kelly and Sherry, who stayed with us all the way through tonight. Thank you very much. And I would like to say thank you to the staff for this past year. It's been an outlandish type of year, and your performance and dedication, along with the entire District 21 professional and support community, has been nothing short of extraordinary. So thank you on behalf of the board. And Stacy, go ahead.
Since Rosemary's not here tonight, I just wanted to say something about her, because her and I have had quite a relationship since I came into the district, and forged I think, a unusual friendship the way it was. But she wasn't just the coordinator. She really became a part of those families. And I just want to say thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Jessica?
Bill,
Aye.
no, Phil,
Aye.
Debbie,
Aye.
I vote yes. Stacy Allen,
Yes.
Arlen,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Stacy,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you all very much. Bill, Arlen and Stacy, you need to sign that first page in there, please.